So nice to meet you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you to the Gorgias team for having me, to Roman and Victor and the rest of the team I've been able to work with. As Chris said, my name's Tiana. I've been at OpenAI since 2023, and I'm just super thrilled to be here and share my learnings with you all. So to start off, I want to share a little bit about OpenAI for those of you who don't know much about our company and our founding. OpenAI started a while ago in 2015 as a research lab. Our mission? To build safe AI and ensure AI's benefits are as widely and evenly distributed as possible. Everything I do, everything our team does every day is core to this mission, and we come back to it time and time again. One of the things I keep in mind every day is how this technology impacts the economies and businesses and folks that use it, and I would say it's something that's top of mind for all of us. Now, when we first started, a lot of the things you hear about in the news today around OpenAI, like access to capital or the ability to hire researchers, those were not the biggest problems that we faced. The biggest problem was actually skepticism around AI in general, particularly the type of AI, AGI, we had set out to build. Now, a lot of this traces back to the fact that although there's been a lot of recent frenzy around AI and tons of folks building with it, AI is not a new field, and OpenAI did not invent it. AI actually has been around since the 1950s, and there have been many, many advancements since then. Some of the more recent ones in the 2000s. So as you'll see here, in 2004, machine learning was born. And this allowed computers to learn from vast data sets and apply patterns forward. This eventually led to the mastery of computers being able to master games like chess and Go. In 2017, deep learning was born. And this transformer architecture is what enabled OpenAI to really found the generative AI field. Now, a question I get a lot is, what exactly is generative AI? And obviously, we've seen some demos today that kind of showcase what that is. But generative AI, in a nutshell, is essentially a type of AI that allows machines to learn from vast data sets, learn patterns, and then generate outputs that resemble human-made creations, like text, images, audio, and video. If you've ever used ChatGPT, this is likely sounding familiar. And this field today is rapidly accelerating. Every week, frankly, we're seeing new things ship. So although we are not responsible for the founding of AI, we are responsible for this generative AI field. And we consider ourselves to be on the path to achieving AGI, or artificial general intelligence. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a bit as far as what exactly that is, because that's another question I get a lot. But before that, would love to just give you a quick insight into our history. So 7 years into our existence, we had, as a company, explored all types of interesting AI projects, like seeing if AI could solve a Rubik's Cube with one hand or beat some of the best gamers in the world. And although those projects were extremely interesting for our research team, it was a little unclear as to how these would actually translate to the real world and help solve real-world problems. So in 2022, one of those projects that our team was working on was a chatbot called ChatGPT. And just for some fun, this is the Slack message that was shared out the morning of our team's quote-unquote silent launch, which didn't stay silent for very long, as I'm sure many of you know. And over the next couple of weeks, it became clear that something really significant had happened and had changed. Not only were people starting to use this technology, but the world had kind of noticed and discovered what generative AI was and started to think through some of the possibilities of this technology. Fast forward to today, and we're super proud to say it's one of the fastest growing products of all time. Now, this is all super interesting, but a question I also get a lot is, AI is great, and I love hearing about large language models, but what truly is an LLM? And I was talking to Chris about this earlier. Oftentimes, some people just, we jump right into learning about agents and all the really interesting things they're doing, or we're just like too scared to ask. So I'm going to be that person to help and answer that for you all. Now, you probably weren't expecting this, This obviously is not a large language model. This is a cat. Stay with me. More accurately, it's a house cat, which is one of the only domesticated species of the feline family. I'm sure many people here have them. They're cute, they're smart, frankly can be mean. I'm more of a dog person myself. But to an LLM, it's actually not a cat. It's simply a concept that exists in the world. And to an LLM, without any other context, this does not mean anything else. Each concept in an LLM is represented by a token, as you see here. And each token then connects to other tokens. For example, these are all concepts that I think we can all agree relate to a cat. They can be house pets, they purr, they pounce, they scratch themselves. And we know about these relationships because of our shared writings and culture. These relationships come up time and time again in books, in movies, on the internet. What an LLM does is it takes these relationships and all of this data, and it assigns a weight to the relationships. It compresses this information, and it essentially says where are the strongest/weakest relationships between each of these concepts and tokens. That numerical weight is then assigned and extrapolated out over billions, or frankly, hundreds of billions of tokens. And this correlation is essentially determined based off of how often these concepts are linked or come up together time and time again. So when you hear someone say that they are training a model, OpenAI or otherwise, what we're essentially doing is compressing huge chunks of data on the internet to determine what these weights and correlations are. Probably not a surprise, the correlation between a dog and cat is going to be one of the stronger ones, right? Dogs and cats are brought up together time and time again in movies and books and plays, right? There's many instances of this in our shared learnings and culture. Cats and monkeys, on the other hand, that relationship might exist, but it comes up far less often than the one between a dog and a cat. So because of that, that correlation here is going to be significantly smaller than the one between cats and dogs. Now, when you extrapolate this out over billions or hundreds of billions of tokens, you start to get a neural network, or you do get a neural network. And that's exactly what an LLM is. It's a neural network. And so when you run this, what you're essentially doing is you're putting various inputs, so in this case, cat met A, and all we are doing is asking the model to predict what the outcome is. So in this case, with this initial query, it's going to guess that the output is dog, right? Far more likely than the output becoming monkey. Now, this is fully self-contained, does not need a connection to the internet. You simply input a query, and it tells us an output. Now, to many of you, especially myself at first, when I was first learning this, it might seem quite simple, right? And again, similar to our Rubik's Cube example, maybe not so clear how this could be useful in the real world. But again, when we extrapolate this out over hundreds of billions of examples, we get a model that starts to show signs of reasoning and intelligence. So, for example, if we take this same model that's been trained on all of these concepts, all the animals included, and we were to give it kind of the plot of a murder mystery story, all of the actors, the background, the series of events, and ask it who the murderer might be, it would come up with the most probable answer, despite never having been trained on that specific story itself. LLMs are great at a lot of different things. Again, we've seen multiple examples already today in the last hour of where they are good and provide great feedback, especially when you layer tools on top. But they're not perfect at everything. And I think as humans, as we're all in one room, right, making these connections and getting to know one another, I think it's important to keep top of mind like where they're not quite perfect today. And one of the things that you might have heard about a lot is a hallucination, which is kind of a funny term for us to assign to something in the AI world. But essentially, what a hallucination is when a model outputs a false answer. Now, hallucinations happen for a number of different reasons. One reason could be a limitation in that training data. So all of those hundreds of billions of examples that we have, if that data is only through a certain date, for instance, so say we trained this model, but we trained this model and the knowledge date was June of last year, right? That's when we finished training, and that was a subset of information we had. If I today were just to straight ask that model who the current president of the United States was, it would likely say Joe Biden, because he was the president at the time. The other reason why this might happen is because LLMs don't simply know facts. They don't inherently know, right? As we saw in the cat meta dog example, LLMs simply are predicting the next token. So if we have training data that isn't strong, if we have training data that's out of date, it might not be smart enough to predict that next token. This is where tools that we layer on top of LLMs really come into play and why they're so important. So in our president example, if I were to take that same model and I gave it the ability to search the web, it would then search the web to pull the most up-to-date presidential information and give me the right answer. Okay, so I'd love to share, based off of that, some other examples of where AI is in the world today. We are seeing transformation with AI across truly every industry imaginable, and I want to talk to you today about 3. The first is in healthcare. Lung cancer is one of the deadliest cancers in the world. It's relatively common and unfortunately relatively difficult to treat. In early stages, if it's caught early, the 5-year survival rate is 70%. If detected in later stages, that same survival rate unfortunately drops to 10%. Researchers at MIT have developed an AI model to detect future lung cancer risk. They trained this model on CT scans taken from both male and female smokers, and were able to come up with a model that could detect not only which of those individuals would eventually develop cancer, but which lung would specifically develop cancer. So this is just one of many LLMs in healthcare. Healthcare is a field I'm personally extremely passionate about. It was one of the reasons why I decided to join OpenAI to kind of bring this impact and improve the kind of human experience for everyone. It's enabling earlier disease detection, personalized treatments, faster drug discovery, and of course, improving patient outcomes and operational efficiency for those who work in it. It's super exciting. I realize there's a lot of animals in my presentation. I am an animal lover. But this, I've never met one of these. This is a Jeffrey's spider monkey. They are found mostly in Costa Rica, and they're an endangered species. A group of biologists went ahead and put 350 audio monitors in this rainforest to essentially spy on them and detect their movements, how many there were, and try to figure out the general health of this population. They collected so much audio data over the course of a week that it would have taken likely years to sort through. What they did instead was they filtered this audio data through an AI system that was specifically trained on spider monkey calls. And what they were able to determine very, very quickly, in a matter of days instead of years, was that this spider monkey population was in pretty critical condition and in need of human intervention to survive. So they were able to jump in that and make that impact quite quickly. What we're now seeing is multiple other groups are taking the same technology, they're optimizing it, and they're replicating it for other endangered species around the world. Thirdly, we are, of course, seeing AI's impact in the enterprise. And what better example, obviously, than to mention all of the powerful things that Gorgias is doing today. We at OpenAI see Gorgias as one of our flagship digitally native customers. They are a standout example of what it means to move quickly and qualitatively with AI while ensuring things are safe and staying within certain guardrails. They started partnering with us in early 2024, so it's been over a year long, and it's been a really amazing relationship to date. And I think one thing I personally have been very impressed by in seeing their kind of evolution in partnership with OpenAI is just how quickly they are adapting new models and new technology to bring that impact to their customers, and then, of course, eventually to your customers as well. I think one example of how customer-centric they are is we had a very, very close sprint with them late last year, or really in the fall of last year, to prepare for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and ensure that there were no disruptions, and they and you all could create the best experience given the uplift in traffic that you all were expecting. So with that, very excited to bring my partner in crime, Victor, up on stage to talk a little bit more about what you all have built. I can go through.
Thank you, Tiana.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Victor. I'm working in engineering here at Gorgias, and I work specifically on everything AI agent. And today, I want to tell you about what we do with OpenAI and how we take what OpenAI builds and make it into what we deliver to you. Because you might be wondering, why do we even need Gorgias? Like, those models are awesome. They're curing cancer. They're detecting cats and dogs. So why do we even need Gorgias? Well, the thing is that those models are generic, meaning that you can think of them as interns, basically the smartest intern that you've ever met. They know everything that was ever written in the world. They are super smart, super clever, but they don't know anything about you. They don't know anything about how you sell to your customers. They don't know your customers. They don't know your products or your inventory. And that's where Gorgias comes in. At Gorgias, we've been taking those models and giving them support skills, sales skills, and the ability to coordinate between those two skills to create a conversation with your shoppers. And that's very important because we saw in the market that a lot of products were really good at support, really good at sales, but not a lot of them were really good at having a straight conversation with a fluent conversation with shoppers, mixing in support and sales at the same time. So that's what we did, and I don't have the clicker.
Yeah,
you have the clicker. Cool.
True partnership.
And the way we do this, we do this in two main ways, and the first one is prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is the ability to do continuous model improvement based on feedback. So first, we get a lot of feedback. We get feedback from you, obviously. We get feedback from shoppers, and also internally, we get a lot of feedback. We have a full team dedicated to do prompt engineering. And what they do is that they look at tickets, they look at behaviors from the models, and they determine what are the behaviors that are working well and the behaviors that are not working well. From this feedback, they decide what they want to improve. So that's what we say when we say that we taught them how to do sales or how to do support. We decide we want to tell them, okay, how to handle a return request, for instance. And based on this use case that we want to solve, like return, we decide on a set of instructions that we're going to give the model to explain how to do a return request. Sorry. And then it's a lot of testing. First, offline testing, where we take the set of instructions that we give to the model, and we test it on thousands of tickets. And I'm saying multiple thousands of tickets. We analyze the results. We decide if the instructions are good or not. If not, we iterate. And if they're good, we do A/B testing. So we do continuously A/B testing live on tickets, and we analyze the quality of the results. That's super important for us. It allows us to know whether instructions are good enough to be put in production and delivered to you. And we do this cycle over and over again on each use case that we want to tackle to teach the new skills to the model. Please, next. And that's not all, because you can have the right behavior, but by default, and I think Tiana talked about this a bit, models are only text and images. Now they can do voice, but they don't know how to interact with the real world. And the real world of e-commerce is where Gorgias is really good. For the last 10 years, we've been building an e-commerce platform, integrating with apps, integrating with your website, integrating with your help center, hosting your help center. So we have all that data. We have all of your previous conversations with shoppers, and we can use this securely, privately, only for you. That's very important for us. We have a contract with OpenAI, actually. They're not allowed to use the data that we send to train the models. They're not even allowed to store it. But we are allowed to provide it to the model so it can use it in its prediction. So that's for the data. And then we have the e-commerce specialization to teach the model how to interact with the e-commerce world. We built actions. Romain did a demo on the shipping address. We built a way to interact with shoppers. Max did the demo to show that when a shopper is doing a search, we're able to like pop up at the right time and present with an opportunity. And we also have built a huge recommending engine. And those things allow models to actually interact with the real world. We took all of this and we made it available to the Gorgias channels, right now chat and email, and soon socials and SMS. That's how we took Gorgias OpenAI models and made them into e-commerce agents.
Thank you. Great. So we're going to keep Victor up on stage here because I'm going to use him to show you a demo in a bit. But of course, e-commerce is why we're here. And thank you so much, Victor, for kind of giving us that background as far as how you all have worked with our models. I'd love to spend a bit of time speaking specifically about what is relevant for you all and D2C brands as we look to the rest of this year and what's coming. Now, there are two ways that I would like you all to think about using AI and improving your AI literacy in general. The first of which is by using a chatbot like ChatGPT to improve your own productivity and your employee productivity, both in your personal life and in business. The great thing about something like ChatGPT, right, is it's out of the box. You don't need to be technical to use it. You can be any age, any technical literacy, and also use any language and get jump-started right away. The second way is by infusing AI into your products. So building custom on AI models via the API. Again, what Victor kind of explained there. Now, what I love about what Gorgias has built is that it sits at the intersection of these two AI literacy goals, right? It's out of the box. You do not need to be technical to implement Gorgias into your customer experience, but it's custom, like what Victor mentioned. It's custom for the e-commerce experience. You all can then further customize it for your customers, and you're also bringing that AI impact not only for yourself and your businesses, but for the consumers that are purchasing through you all. Now, I want to talk about 4 other kind of like specific areas where I have seen, and we as a company have seen, other D2C brands really utilizing AI. The first of which is marketing co-pilots. Probably not a surprise here. But we are seeing brands using both image generation and data analysis capabilities inside generative AI chatbots like ChatGPT to upload vast amounts of customer data and purchase data by region and ask it to essentially come up with marketing campaigns, whether it's brainstorming or full life cycle campaigns for specific regions. These campaigns can include both text and images as we look at multimodality, and this is saving marketing teams a lot of time and resources. The second is autonomous store management. So we are seeing brands both using AI to manage their inventory for both brick and mortar and online stores. And we're seeing, again, a ton of advancement and time savings here, as well as just like ensuring that things are accurate so that they can update their relevant inventory online immediately, right, if there's a shortage, or order more product if needed. The third is dynamic pricing strategies, which, given today's environment, is probably even more relevant than it was when I put this slide together for you all. So adapting to market conditions, competitor activity, these are all things, of course, that are top of mind for you all. We are seeing companies that are implementing these strategies see profitability increases of up to 22%. So it's extremely impactful, and again, something that you can do relatively quickly and easily with AI. This example is a little harder. So I think Lowe's is a great example, and this is a public example that we've kind of showcased as a company, so I can share it with you all. But what they've done is they have essentially fine-tuned one of our models, essentially like gave this model additional preference information, kind of similar to the example Mia was sharing, right? Sharing more information and background as far as how you want to train the AI shopping assistant. Lowe's has thousands of products, both in-store and online. And what they were struggling with is that when people went to their website to search for a product, they oftentimes weren't finding products that fit what they were looking for. They had a mismatch in what was in a product image to what was in that product title and description. So they fine-tuned one of our models to improve that search experience and improve the titles and the descriptions of the products on their website. And what resulted was a much higher search to checkout experience on their website. They saw revenue lifts. They saw just actually overall people were doing more shopping on Lowe's.com. I was fortunate enough to get to work with this team. They're very tech savvy. It was quite a big team who did this. And so as you can imagine, there's a ton of engineering resources that go into doing something like this. And it's quite expensive. Of course, coming back to Gorgias, because how could we not in this case, what's so amazing is Gorgias has essentially built this functionality for you all, right? Their very advanced engineering team has taken the time and resources to really dive in, spend a ton of time, and bring forth the product and an experience where you all can have access to the same type of capability out of the box. It's just so exciting for me to see, of course, once we get to see individual brands doing this for themselves, but then to see the reach of kind of disseminating this type of technology for everyone, like what Gorgias is doing. I think it's such a stellar example and really amazing to see. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about where AI is headed. So AI has come a really, really long way from a couple years ago, from 2015 when OpenAI was just started. But there's still a lot of limitations to AI today, outside of the hallucinations that we talked about. For instance, ChatGPT, if we look at it as a product, it won't continuously learn and improve. It can't go out and discover a new piece of science and update its own understanding. It can't yet take a task that you give it, click around in a browser for you, call someone, and then complete it. That is what we as a company see as AGI and where the world is headed. We've heard a lot about agents today, and I think the word agent has become quite the buzzword in Silicon Valley as well. It's really is going to be the year of agents. That's what we see here at OpenAI. And I think it's important to really define what exactly an agent is. Again, we've seen some amazing demos today of agents in action. But this is how we as a company are defining it. So an agent is a system that can essentially handle an entire workflow on your behalf. Now, how does it do that? It takes a base model, one of those models that we've trained. It then is given a workflow, essentially a set of instructions for what it should follow. We then give it access to tools, like the ability to search the web or go pull external information. And then, maybe even most importantly, we'll put guardrails in place to ensure that it's always doing the right thing and escalating to a human if and when needed. I'd love to paint a quick picture about where we see agents headed. Ideally, we have a number of parents in the room. Do we have folks that have kids here? Yeah? Okay, great. So my son is 8 months old. He's the center of my world. It's been an extremely fun experience. But what I recently learned was that I should have been on the list for preschools when I was pregnant. And no one tells you that. And so, yeah, I recently discovered this, and I'm in very big trouble because I have not started this. So what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, ChatGPT, I live in San Francisco, gave him my son's age, and I said, I'm looking for a preschool. Can you please tell me what are the things I should consider? Can you give me some recommendations? Like, where do I even start looking? So I input this information, and today it actually does a really good job. Gave me a list of criteria to think about, like Montessori, play-based, what's your price range, what languages do you want spoken in school? And it was helpful information. But imagine a world in which it first does that, and then it asks me, what are your preferences based off of all these criteria? And I go in and I put, I want Spanish speaking because my husband's from Chile. I want a small classroom size. Price, I can't even think about that right now. It's so expensive, but I give it a few options. And then it says, okay, great. Imagine it would then come back and say, these are the 5 schools that are within driving distance of where you live that meet the criteria that you're looking for. It would give me a brief, an overview as to each school, why it thinks these are good options for myself and my family. And then imagine I give it the green light and I say, okay, yep, approved. And then imagine it goes and it actually calls those schools. It cross-references my calendar with my husband's calendar to ensure that we're free, and it schedules tours for us. We then go to those tours, and in the car ride home, I pull out my cell phone and I record an audio note where I essentially give it feedback and I say, hey, this went well, I liked this, I didn't like that. Then takes all those audio notes and it comes up with a recommendation for the top 3 it thinks that we should apply to. And then it fills out the forms for the applications, all of that rudimentary information that we have to repeat so often, like our address and social security numbers and stuff like that. I actually don't even know if you need a social security number to apply to a school. Someone can tell me after what I need to put in. And then it would prompt me for more information, right, where I needed to kind of provide more of a description as to why I wanted to apply to those schools. That is the type of agent experience that we see is coming. The technology is not quite there yet, but it's surprisingly close. So each of those different pieces is actually possible today, but now it's a question of how can we bring these things all together and have that be a really comprehensive, easy, seamless experience for everyone. So related to that, there are 2 things that we see coming this year. More than 2 things, but these are the 2 things I'm going to share with you. So the first is reasoning capabilities, and the second is native multimodality. So reasoning for humans is when we think through multiple steps before we answer. It's essentially using type 2 thinking instead of type 1 thinking. Type 1 thinking is when we give kind of an obvious gut reaction to something. Studies have shown that the majority of us use type 1 thinking when we're asked a political opinion. We have a preformed notion of what our beliefs are, and when asked something, we give our gut reaction. Type 2 thinking is when we have to think through multiple steps before we answer. This is usually activated if we're writing a paper or doing some type of deeper analysis. And that is where we see models getting much better at and much smarter with, is with those abilities to reason. Now, reasoning models, if you've ever played around with one, they're a bit slower than typical kind of mainline models, and this is because they're thinking through those multiple steps. But what results is a better answer. So for our healthcare use cases, like diagnosing diseases, for really complex support ticket use cases, right, these are going to be extremely useful and are just going to get that much smarter with the more training that's being done. The second is native multimodality. So this is where single models can hear, speak, listen, and bringing all of those different ways of communicating as humans under the roof as one model. Today, you have to do this through several different tools and capabilities patched together. And I'm very excited to get to show you a sneak peek into kind of what's coming and where we see this modality going forward. So, okay, great. Just so happens that this demo gets to be Paris and France related, which I was really excited about. Unintended. So what we're going to show you here is we have a script, essentially. This prompt was input to OpenAI's Sora model, which hopefully some of you have had a chance to see this. It's our video generation model. This is the only part of the demo, admittedly, that's not live, because generating a video, an AI-generated video, takes some time and it would be super boring. You all would be sitting here for quite some time. But we asked our model to come up with a video that demonstrates these street scenes from Paris in the 1800s, or 1889, excuse me. So I'm going to click this button. So this video is fully AI generated, which I think is really amazing. I think it's cool to play with timing with AI generated images too, because it gives you a sense of like what the world could have looked like at a time where none of us were alive. The audio, full disclosure, is patched over. So this is not automatically generated. But we're going to get to a point where audio can be automatically generated in conjunction with video. But for the purposes of this demo, the audio was created separately and ported over. So from this point forward, I promise everything is live. So what are we doing here is we're going to extract, or the model will now extract individual frames from this video to essentially create a storyboard. Again, this is doing it completely on its own. It picked these individual images, and we can ask it to analyze and narrate exactly what's happening in this video. So the model actually doesn't have that written context from before. It just has these frames. So it's using vision capabilities, the ability for the model itself to see, and we're saying, hey, come up with a script that describes exactly what's happening in this video, right? So if we were to narrate, for instance, like a nature documentary or something, this could do it for you. Okay, excellent. So here it's given us a little script. It's relatively short. And in this case, I'm going to say, OK, great, we have this script, but I actually want someone to narrate it. And I've chosen Victor to narrate it. So thank you so much for going along with this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Victor to simply speak for 15 seconds. And with that 15-second voice clip, this model will create essentially a custom model of Victor's voice and be able to use his voice specifically to narrate over any version of text. Which is a really exciting capability. Of course, this could be used for good and for bad, hence the security reasons of this staying on my computer for right now. Now I'm going to ask Victor to just speak about absolutely anything in the world into the computer mic, but I'll have his mic here too.
OK. Well, I guess if we're talking about Paris, I should let you into a little secret. I'm actually French. And I lived in Paris for 10 years, so I can tell you the video is great. It actually looks like that. The Eiffel Tower is not so close to where it's shown in the video, but it's actually pretty good.
Great. OK, sweet. So the model just listened, right, to Victor speaking, took in that audio, and now we're going to, and as you can see, it's going to happen relatively quickly, but we're going to ask it to take his voice and use our audio capabilities to generate this custom voice that's exclusively Victor's, to apply to that narration that was also AI generated. I'll let this run through. I see people are nervous.
In the vibrant streets of Paris during the 1889 Exposition Universelle, elegantly dressed men and women stroll amidst a backdrop of grand architecture. The scene is alive with the bustling energy of the World Fair, capturing the essence of 19th century glamour. The newly constructed Eiffel Tower rises majestically, its iron lattice looming over the expo grounds, symbolizing innovation and modernity. The expo buildings adorn...
Oh, no. OK. Yeah, well, French would be too obvious. Then you all would think it's pre-recorded. OK, bummer. So it just cut it off. So this is how you can tell it's truly live. But it can switch back and forth actually between all of these different languages and then have that same voice. Like I've heard myself speaking in Mandarin before, and it's a very uncanny experience. So you can go back and forth and switch between all of these. And of course, where we see this applying, there's multiple applications for this, I think, but for the purpose of you all, right? Imagine you have a customer service agent or a sales agent that sounds exactly like your CEO, and they're speaking in multiple languages to people all around the world who are trying to buy your products. The storyboarding and the analyzing behind the scenes can also be applied to product images. The applications here for enterprise users and others in the world are just endless. And I'm super glad I was able to kind of share this sneak peek with you all as far as what's coming. We're really excited for the rest of this year. I think we're over time, so I'm gonna go. But thank you all, and thank you to the Gorgias team for having me.